everybody should be doing what works for them, what
Yes.
feels the most comfortable for them. You're happy to be working at it because
Yeah.
no matter what you do, it's going to be work. It's going to be hard. There's going to be challenges. There's
Yeah.
going to be problems. Pick something that, you don't have to fight yourself every day, uh, just to get yourself to even start and facing the problems associated with whatever field you're working to,
Right.
right?
Welcome back to the Corner Talks podcast. I have my good friend here.
How's it going, man? Happy to be back.
No, it shouldn't be about anything. Like, this is
Yeah.
one life.
Yep, one life? Like, fucking
Yeah.
do it.
My guy.
Like, she just got it. She totally understood it.
20 years old when I started just watching a lot of movies.
And it tells a story. I want to tell a story.
Kevin Guo, who is a podcaster and salesman. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Awesome. Yeah, perfect intro.
Perfect. Thank you, man. Well, I try to specialize in that. I've been doing it for so long. I think over 100 episodes now.
Yeah, I was checking you guys out. You post like every 10 days or every couple of days, right?
Yeah, twice a week. During the pandemic, I had a lot more time on my hands, and guests were more available. So I was able to post, you're looking at about 3 times a week, 4 times. So I was trying to hit that number, but it's challenging. But we do it and we still stay committed to it. I think that's the whole point of any kind of content creation, right? Is that consistency. But yeah, man, it's been quite a ride, man. And I appreciate you being on the podcast to share this journey with me.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I have to shout out Tyler Seller here for connecting us.
Yeah.
That's a great kid. He just reached out, on Instagram, after seeing some of our stuff on the podcast, and we had a great call with him, and immediately, we're trying to set up a meeting with him, have him on the pod sometime in
Nice.
April.
Yeah.
And immediately on that call, he was like, I have this good friend, Daniel. He also runs podcasts. I can, see you guys really connecting. And I would say a couple weeks later, we're sitting at a bar together. And that's, shout out to Tyler for setting that up.
Yeah, Tyler Seller, my guy. That guy is one of me kind of thing where it's like we're just very open, honest, and generous in our abilities to help creatives. But he is highly impressive. He's a young kid, not to bring his age into it, but the reality is like you and I both agreed because we're similar in age. It's like a young kid like that with such fortitude, such maturity, to be able to craft these relationships, man, these professional ones, I should add.
Yeah.
And really cultivate an empire at such a young age is highly remarkable and commendable.
Yeah.
So I always tell him that every time I'm on the phone with him. I always have to remind myself, you know what I mean, of his age. But I love that, right? Keeps us young. And honestly, shout out to you, man, Tyler. Thank you again for connecting us and connecting a lot of the guests that I have on this podcast. You're the king, buddy. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Fuck yeah, Tyler.
Yeah, man. So again, we've already had a few stimulating conversations beforehand discussing our creative career trajectories as we pursue inventive endeavors such as podcasting. You and I, were able to have the fortune of sharing a drink, grabbing some drinks downtown Toronto, and that's we were shooting shit, talking about a whole bunch of things, including podcasting itself. And seeing that you've developed a podcast called Kill Your Pride, what was the inspiration to begin this creative venture?
Yeah, for me, it was kind of a long, winding path to get here. I would say I'm 27 now, maybe for 25 years of my life, anything creative, anything in entertainment, anything remotely like a podcast was not in my cards at all.
Right.
I grew up in a very traditional Chinese, culturally Chinese household.
Right.
And, from as long as I can remember, the path for me and my brother was, study business in university, go to law school after that, and become a corporate lawyer. That was the default path and pretty much only path.
Right.
My brother was successful in that, so he's a corporate lawyer out there in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And when I was like going through high school and stuff, it was very hard for me to even consider doing anything outside of the path I was set.
Right.
Even for things like in the scientific field, not to mention, creative field. I was just, the kid watching Wolf of Wall Street movies and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Suits and like, yeah, I'm gonna be this guy, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I realized, a lot of that. Um, so actually, I took the law school entrance exam.
Okay.
Um, and I got an okay score, but not good enough to go to the school that I'd like to attend, and my parents would want me to attend.
Okay.
So I was basically working on the applications, trying to get my grades up to do it a second time.
Okay.
Um, and I was working at a bank at the same time. So this is like a couple years ago. That's what I was doing before I changed careers.
Right.
And when applying to law school and stuff, you have to think of your essay and reflect on the reasons and
Yeah. Yeah.
motivations for
Yeah.
why you
Yeah.
want to do this. And at that point, I was very, my motivation for this really declined. I would say since I graduated undergrad, kind of all the kind of visions and ideas, the positive ideas I would have of this path kind of were gone. I was in a bit of a depression. So when I was doing those applications, asking me, why I wanted to be a lawyer, at the end of the day, I couldn't come up with a better answer than, I wanted to make uh, my father proud.
Right. Yeah.
That's about it, right? If
Exactly.
you Everything else is like, I want to be respected, have a prestigious job, have money, but those aren't good reasons to do something, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And through that process, like I just couldn't do it anymore. And there was a point where I was um in a very dark place,
Yep.
where either I basically faced two options: either just accept this and try to find a way to cope with um, going to law school for 4 years, probably my relationship with my vices was deteriorating as
Right.
well. So kind of try to accept it and try to find a way through that path, continuing forward, or basically flip my life upside down and come clean to my father that I'm gonna go my own way. Ended up doing that. It was a difficult, rocky start.
Yeah.
Basically, I quit my job. I quit law school, studying for law school,
Right.
and moved to Toronto from Montreal and started a completely new career in sales.
Nice.
I chose this because I think that's really my calling, right? Anything to do
Yeah.
with people, with building social networks, applying my social intelligence, emotional intelligence. I think those are some of my greatest skill sets. Um, and for the longest time, they were always kind of hindrances to what I was doing.
Mm.
Like my being super outgoing and social and wanting to be the life of a party. Um, that was kind of a distraction when you're trying to pursue academics or um, that type of career path. But now now that I have control of my life and deciding everything about it in terms of what I do for a career, what I do with my free time, I've positioned myself in doing things like the podcast and my sales job where it's where my natural kind of talent and interest in things is a benefit rather
Right.
uh, than something that's seen as a distraction.
Yeah. No, that was well said. What a beautiful put story, like it's highly familiar, not only to the audience, but to myself, being in a family, immigrant family where, you want to emulate them, you want to make them proud, but at the same time, you're steering away from the conventional values of getting a 9 to 5 job, being stuck in those ways. But I can understand that, man. I highly resonate with what everything you're saying.
Yeah, when we were talking over a couple drinks,
Yes.
I could really sense that. I think we relate in that need to carve out something for ourselves and something be doing something in life that we really believe in, and it's not just because you know, of external factors that influence us. But
Yep.
also I recognize that, you know, you also have this great appreciation and respect for what our parents are trying to do, even though we might not completely agree uh,
Exactly.
with it. I very much respect, you know, everything my father has done for me, you know. um some people don't have parents who care that much
Right.
to you know, give your kids a good and purposeful path, and invest in them, provide the resources to do that.
Right.
um but I think, you know, we were discussing the um kind of mind space of an immigrant family, right? Like, for our parents are first generation
Yep.
immigrants.
Yep.
um and they come from a background where you know, they had to do things to survive. They
Yep.
had to make sure they had money for rent, for food, and, you know, they may have come from difficult regions of the world
Yep.
politically. And so, you know, their vision for a happy, successful life is one where you're able to provide for yourself in a stable and consistent way, right? So
Yep.
that's why, you know, immigrant parents really value like careers like law, you know, healthcare, um, and you know, engineering, STEM, things like that, right?
Yeah.
Because they really just want us to 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 have a healthy and successful life, and that's their version of it. Um, but us as second generation growing up here, you know, a lot of our struggles are not with the base necessities of survival, right? I don't know about you. I never
No, for
really had to
sure.
worry about that. And our struggle tends to be more spiritual, finding purpose, fulfillment in life.
Yeah, it's more mentally driven for sure. It's back then there was more of a charming simplicity to it, right? It's kind of like, this is my job, this is what I need to do, and that's it. But that's also how society conditioned it for them, right? In fairness to us, like you could work at a grocery store and own a house. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly. Back then, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a give and take, right? It's not like we have that nowadays where it's like, hey, if I work at you know, my local grocery store, I'm able to, you know, buy an apartment in Toronto. Then I could understand me being that free spirited. Oh, but I still want to do
Yeah,
more and whatever. You know what I mean?
true, very true.
It's
Yeah,
like no, it's like that relentless ambition is because I understand how excruciatingly hard it is to acquire such luxuries in life. But no, I understand completely everything you're saying, man, and that's why we resonated. You know, we both come from similar backgrounds, and I just enjoyed the tenacity that you possessed. You know what I mean? That mentality. Again, you find it in a lot of people, especially
yeah,
our generation, because everybody wants to believe they're that entrepreneur, that self starter. But you start to talk to individuals again, like Tyler Seller, like yourself, and you start to see like, no, these are the people that are like minded. These are the people that are actually like showing up, doing the work, putting in the hours, and those are the people I have the most respect for. Because for the longest time, growing up in a small suburb just outside Toronto, you know, I've come across a lot of people, man, a lot of creative individuals that wanted to be in my situation, filmmakers, entrepreneurs. Always tried to connect to them, always tried to collab with them, all fell through. And the reason being is I like to always say, like, a lot of people want to feel like they know they have their hands on the dream, but they don't actually own it. You know what I mean? And it's two different things. So that's why I strongly believe, I'm a firm believer of showing up, doing the work. That's the hardest part. Everything else will follow, but
yeah,
showing up is the hardest part. And that's what
yeah,
we're doing here today. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
thanks again. Credit to you for coming on the podcast. This is an amazing conversation. And also credit to you for being involved, contributing your talents to starting your own podcast. I want to know now from you, like, what challenges have you experienced in developing that podcast and reaching your audience?
Yeah. So I think the first challenge was, you know, setting up how we wanted the podcast to look and
Right.
sound.
Okay.
So everything production wise, you
Mhm.
know, starting it out, starting out the podcast, it was me and my good friend James. He helped
Right.
me through, you know, a lot of that difficult time I went through in my
Nice.
transition.
Okay.
Um, and you know, he originally had a clothing brand called Kill Your Pride.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and he's been working on that for, ever since he was in college, you know, for many years, for maybe 4 years or something. And then the amount of time he invested in doing creative stuff kind of declined, and he was kind of moving into like that adult life, focusing more on his full-time corporate job, and his relationship, and kind of like almost giving up on that creative path, like just
Of
accepting,
course.
adulthood, basically accepting the mainstream kind of guidance. Like, yeah, you have your fun in your 20s, you explore yourself, but you're about to approach your 30s, so get a stable job, buckle down, and all that.
Yeah.
And then, I came to him with my kind of revelation to want to do it, and I referenced Kill Your Pride as something that inspired me. Um,
Okay. Nice.
his clothing brand, right? Because I
Right.
saw
Right.
him, when we were in college, I was focused on studying and stuff, and I would see him post every day, fashion videos, and so thoughtfully, such thoughtfully designed logos and um, uh, design ideas. And he would just be so consistent, and that would inspire me, even though, at that time, because it was so different from what I was pursuing, I would kind of look down upon it as well. It was kind
Right.
of this like, um, uh kind of mixed emotions towards it, right?
Interesting.
I would think, like, because secretly I admired it, and I wanted to be able to be brave enough to express myself creatively like that.
Hmm.
But I've always, convinced myself that no, I'm a serious academic lawyer
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
I have to
That's true.
I
You're
have to
coming from that background, right? It's not like you're a
right.
spontaneous creative. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would kind of poo-poo on it sometimes in my head, like, oh, but I go to this elite school. I'm going to elite profession. You guys are all just artists, whatever. Uh, and when I had my own realization, I realized how um, blind I was, and how ignorant I was, and
Oh,
how
interesting. Yeah.
um, how twisted my perspective was on other people, like how um dismissive I was of other people's passions, and judgmental, and all these things,
So you're
right?
saying this was all predicated because of the background that was instilled, like the
Yeah,
academic inclination you had that was
yeah.
pressed upon by your parents. Wow.
Because everyone, in the circles I grew up with, in these circles of people pursuing similar things and
Right.
higher academia, you see it. It's in the culture. Like, you go to, I went to McGill, and there would always be this feeling like we would make fun of people who go to Concordia, whatever. Oh, you guys couldn't
Right.
get in, da 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 da. Oh, I'm going. What did you do this summer? Oh, I had an internship with Goldman Sachs. It was like the Kool-Aid, right?
Of course.
And I was very deep into the Kool-Aid.
I was
Like,
gonna say you were drinking that Kool-Aid,
I
man. Like
was drinking that shit. I was
you were
doing keg
judging other
stands.
people, but deep down
Yeah,
you were kind of like, "Yo, I'm not doing anything that spectacular myself," right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And when push came to shove, I realized that, my enthusiasm for all this is predicated on things that are, that wasn't me. Everything I was doing up to that point was either from external influence, from my parents, from my peers at school, from, the university education, um, and it's not what I actually wanted to do. What I actually wanted to do, what I've always loved,
Hmm.
is meeting new people, and
Nice.
spending and having time getting to know them, getting to know people, beyond just all the surface level stuff. I've always been interested in that. I've always been, spent a lot of my time thinking about um, socializing and friends, right? And when I talked to James about all this, I remember that talk in the car. I called him up. I was having a really difficult time. That was the day before, I think, I decided to, let my parents know and everything. And I would say that was when the idea for the podcast came up. And
Wow.
he was inspired from me, because I shared a lot of these things I've always kept to myself. And he really related and resonated with a lot of the stuff that I was saying, because that's what he originally intended through, Kill Your Pride as a clothing brand. And so now from there we decided to make it a podcast, right? And at first we were doing it on our iPhone, no mics, no headphones. We were just yelling into an iPhone and filming it.
I believe that, because when I first started my podcast, it was me and my boy, and literally we were trying to do Joe Rogan like spontaneously, like, yeah, like ever notice like trees kind of are shaped funny, you know what I mean? But we realized there's no direction to it, you know what I mean? And also we're self-aware. We're not like celebrities, and we're not anyone. We don't have
Yeah,
like a huge following. So you forget with Joe Rogan's podcast, the people he brings on, like there's actually a built-in audience. So like
yeah,
they'd be happy to listen to even me. Like I'm guilty of
yeah.
it. Like I love when they talk about aliens. But us, it's just two schmucks. Like, what are you doing? Like, no one wants to hear your opinions. Anyway, but yeah, like similar notions for sure.
Yeah, I think it always starts out something similar to
Yeah,
that
yeah,
scene, right?
yeah.
Yelling into an iPhone. Um, and so yeah, we tried to do it that way, but like for the first episode, we recorded 2 hours and then spent a
Wow.
week editing down to like 40 minutes. And that was the best we could do, right?
Of course.
Um, but we had this really close friend, Danny,
Okay.
who's a full-time photographer, videographer. He also works for co-owns a suit shop, and basically he does this type of stuff for a living, right?
Okay.
He shoots for local businesses, corporate gigs, corporate events and stuff. And so basically his studio apartment is like a full recording studio. Like he has mics, he has
Interesting.
lighting and everything.
Okay.
And he was a close friend of James. And naturally when we do anything, at least naturally whenever James did anything creative, he would always seek Danny for advice, right?
Nice.
So same thing with this. That led to me being introduced to Danny. And I knew him by name. We went to the same college.
Okay.
So I knew him by name. But when I saw, how Danny responded to what we were trying to do, and
Right.
seeing his interest and his enthusiasm for helping us, giving us suggestions for the equipment we need, advice on the podcast. Danny was kind of just the advisor at that point, right? But I knew I needed to have him on the team. So, we wined and dined him a couple times, maybe, Danny always says like you had me at hello
Yeah.
type thing. But,
That's lovely.
when we brought Danny onto the team, that's when, it kind of really started to happen, right? Because
Nice.
he's very meticulous. He reminds me a little bit about of you actually,
Oh, sick.
seeing the care and preparation you put into setting up for this podcast.
Thank you.
He's kind of the same way, right? A true perfectionist, like patient teacher. And from there we had our production process kind of starting to get built out there. And then eventually we were able to have a great process for being able to record maybe a 7 to 9 episodes every trip I take to Montreal. We have a process for editing and banking episodes, so we're able to release every week.
Right.
And we've launched and been putting episodes out every week since Christmas.
Right.
And I think initially that was the biggest challenge, starting it up. Another huge area was actually learning the podcasting skill.
Right.
Um,
The art of conversation, you mean?
yes, art of conversation, and art of conversation with the camera and audience in mind.
Right, right.
Because
Yeah, like I know what you mean.
yeah.
Like provide like yeah, having that acknowledgement that there's an actual viewership,
Yeah.
right? Instead of it's just two people talking. Yeah.
Exactly, and also mannerisms, like the mannerisms of
Yeah.
how you
Camera loves
conversate
expressions, man. It's very
on
complimentary. Yeah.
exactly
I would
on the
know.
mic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because I came completely cold. I've never recorded myself. I've never done any type of, media endeavor.
Right.
So I was just talking on the pod like I would at a party, in a social
Yeah, yeah,
setting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like when you first
And
started kind of thing.
when I first started,
Yeah.
yeah. And I realized, the James and Danny both had some experience before. James would make YouTube videos, Danny's
That's
been on
right.
many, many podcasts. So they
Yeah.
already kind of had the technique to speak on a mic more or less down, right?
Right.
But if you look at the early episodes, it's just Kevin fucking
Yeah.
interjecting,
Yeah. Yeah.
jumping over everybody, like knocking the mic back and
That's
forth, yelling
hilarious.
on the
Yeah, yeah,
mic,
yeah.
taking the conversation to a completely different tangent, completely not active listening. So that was the toughest challenge for me personally on the pod.
Okay.
And I'm sure that was a challenge for the pod as a whole because Danny had to coach me, James, they had to be patient.
Of course.
But that's why I cringe when I rewatch the the early episodes. But now I feel like with Danny and James's support and just kind of practicing over and over again. I think we've done uh close to 30 episodes now.
Okay.
Not all of them are going to end up going up, as some don't meet our qualities anymore.
Okay.
But after all that practice, I've learned so much about conversating in this kind of format, and also I learned so much about myself. I realized I had so many tendencies that I wasn't aware of, like uh yeah, and it's been really cool to kind of see myself grow on the pod.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love everything you're saying about this podcast venture. It's exactly the reason why I ask is because I'm curious to know if you have just a similar experience in terms of developing the podcast and the challenges. I love that you
Yeah,
said that it's an art form because a lot of people that don't respect that it's an art form tend to not do well in the podcast platform. And the reason being is because you have to respect that it's an art form between two individuals with the acknowledgement that there's an audience. And this is why I send you perfectly curated questions, not only to compliment you as a guest, to show that I am aware of you, you know what I mean, and your accomplishments, but also to show to the audience that this is a um, structured podcast in the sense that it's here to provide value, right?
yeah,
There's like a purpose behind it. We like to keep it free ranging, right? There's no
yeah.
structure in the sense that it's like answer the question, but it's more like the questions I told you was like an overview. It's kind of like
Yeah.
to give it some sort of narrative. Because
No,
I'm
it was
big on
very helpful.
storytelling.
I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
going
exactly.
over it and I could get a sense of the type of conversation it was going to be, and
For sure.
I really appreciate, like, at least I felt like it was pretty tailored, right? You would do research on some of the stuff I was doing, and
Of course. Yeah.
a lot of those points were very relevant to a lot of what I'm doing right now, and so I appreciate that. I wanted to ask you,
Yeah, for
did
sure.
when you first started out the podcast, was it already this format, or is this kind of something you refined as you went on?
Definitely, yeah. It was a process of refining. And what I mean by that is when I first started the podcast, the intention was strictly just get it out there, have audio format. It was very intimidating for many years because I was saying to myself, do I need, financially invested in this project, kind of like buy the equipment, buy the materials I need, the resources to give it like that professional polished look. And I think it was Gary Vee that I came across one of his posts, and he said something like, you could start a podcast as easy as recording your conversation and then putting it out there, right? So I thought I needed all these fancy tools that Joe Rogan uses, right? Like the $1,000 mics and things like that. And then I think when the pandemic hit, I realized it was more of an opportunity. It was more effective to. It was more. Yeah, it was more effective to do so when basically Zoom came about, right? So when Zoom came out, they basically had this conversation. Everyone knows it, right? For business meetings, you could virtually have a conversation with someone. The benefit of Zoom is that I was able to record the conversation as we're doing now, and it was cutting the dialogue for me, right? So it was appearing as if there's multi-camera, and then the viewer could enjoy both faces of the conversationalist, right? So I basically what I'm trying to get at is develop the podcast step by step by starting off with just the audio version and then branching off into the Zoom version. And now I'm looking into other platforms actually that can enhance the video quality because that's something I'm trying to
Mhm.
excel at. And yeah, it's just been a learning process, man. It's been a grind, kind of like with Kill Your
Yeah.
Pride. We've all can approach it differently, right? Like you guys have more of an in studio experience, but the benefit of having a virtual podcast is I'm able to have the accessibility of guests, right? The
Yeah.
convenience of, hey, Kevin lives, 45 minutes away from me, but he can hop on the podcast. I don't have to like say, kill 3 hours out of your day, come over my house, do this, do that. So a lot of people have been pushing me that way. Like, you should do a studio experience. You should do this. I'm like, listen, I'm not there yet. I don't have the following. I really don't have
Yeah.
the money or the resources. So right now we're going to make do. And I think it's a testament to my character. Like a lot of people get caught up in the idea of I got to have it done a certain way. I remember
Yeah.
a friend of mine where we were developing we were in the process of developing a podcast, the inception process years ago. And he was like so adamant on like a specific mic to use, right? And it's like, listen, like when I look back, there was no need to have a specific mic and the technology, and they were going to edit it in Adobe Audition. And think about that, man. Like all that time wasted, and it's like 100 and I don't know, I think 40 podcasts I have now, maybe 50 later, and it's like all that time could have been all that time and energy could have been applied to actually doing the podcast and thinking about the logistics of it, right? So yeah, man, it's definitely a refined process. I keep going, I keep improving.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say about any art form, right? Is you have to have that same concept.
Yeah, that's something I admire about about your character, right? It seems like
Right.
you're very much a doer, right? Rather
Yes.
than someone who overthinks it, right? Because I feel like a lot of people starting out a new venture, sometimes there can be paralysis by analysis, right? Like
Yes.
you're trying to plan it to be perfect, to match, how the pros are doing it. You read all your your podcast books and watched all the videos, and now, I can't start unless I have this,
Yeah.
this
I have to have the
lighting, this,
perfect
yeah,
guest and all that shit. Yeah. I know, man.
yeah. And yeah, that's the biggest thing I learned, now working with more creative people. Um, you just got to do it because
Yeah.
you can't plan for perfection. Something's always gonna go wrong. To this day, every time we record, there's some type of fuckery, like
Yeah.
cameras, one of the cameras failing, the audio not being correct, the file getting corrupted. You just have to adapt, man. And I'm just very, very grateful for having the team I have in Danny and James. They're so adaptable. Like,
Right.
even though there's something that goes wrong every time, um, our response isn't to kind of get discouraged. It's just to think of a solution as soon as quick. If we have to duct tape the thing to to the stand, or hang a camera off the wall, we'll make it work. And that just that's my favorite part of it. It's just coming kind of overcoming these challenges. And I think that's where the fun is, rather than chasing some type of result, 10 million subscribers, or X number of views, or whatever. And that's been my favorite part of pursuing this type of creative passions, right? Because I come from that background of academia where everything I did was just for a result.
Right.
The reason why I was even touching a book was not to learn the contents of the book, was to get a 90% grade or above in
That's
my class,
crazy.
right? That's the mentality I've had
Yeah.
the whole time. And I'm not saying everybody in academia is like me. I really hope they're not.
Yeah. Everyone has the
And
same fucking attitude.
no,
No, I know, I'm teasing. Yeah.
yeah, there's people who are in that field because that's where they should be. And
They thrive, yeah, and that's
yeah,
what we were talking about when we were having the drink. And I'm happy that you were, self-aware enough, mature enough to realize that it's like there are individuals like us that clearly have a path, clearly have a vision for ourselves, and are fortunate enough to be talented, and that we can pursue it. And then there are those that genuinely thrive in an
yeah,
office environment or in a structured lifestyle. I have people like my sister. She
yeah,
unapologetically tells me, like, I'd like to be in an
yeah,
office. I like working the 9 to 5. I can't have sporadic, like, she doesn't like what I do, right? Where it's like different clients and there's hiccups here and hiccups there. And like, I don't know if I'm getting paid, and some days I am and whatever. For me, I like it. It keeps me on edge. It keeps me, it keeps like, me
yeah.
feeling alive. Yeah.
For me, I need this type of kind of uh, constant
Adversity.
adversity,
Yeah.
changing, variety. Otherwise, if a thing is too structured and kind of the same thing every day, scheduled, 9 a.m. you do this, 10 a.m. you do that, I very much easily get, you know, um, lose interest.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, I very much need variety in my work life and in my personal life. And you know, that's why I don't promote, just because from my story, it's centered on this kind of moving away from like the stable, corporate academia path to being
Right.
creative. But it's not that I'm here to promote everybody should be a creative, or everybody
Yeah.
should uh, do something for themselves. Um, my thing is everybody should be doing everybody should be doing what works for them, what
Yes.
feels the most comfortable for them.
That brings them the
Uh,
most fulfillment. Always say that.
it brings them the most fulfillment. You're happy to be working at it because
Yeah.
no matter what you do, it's going to be work. It's going to be hard. There's going to be challenges. There's
Yeah.
going to be problems. So the least you can do to make it easier for yourself is pick something that you don't have to fight yourself every day, uh, just to get yourself to even start and facing the problems associated with whatever field you're working to,
Right.
right? If you choose a field you're happy in, at least you get to eliminate one problem. And that's been the defining switch in the last year for me. Just that one little switch has changed my entire perspective and my attitude towards work, and pursuing something consistently. It just made it so much easier because I want to do it, and that makes it so much easier for me to be there consistently and do the things that maybe is not the most exciting things, but because you have this ultimate goal you want to achieve, you'll do them.
Yeah, no, I completely understand, and that's such a noble attitude, right, towards pursuing the craft, whatever craft you excel at, right? It's kind of like you have to always pick what you most thrive at, and not be delusional. I always told you this about your success
Yeah,
in whatever you pursue, right? It's like, for me, the only reason why I'm adamant on being a filmmaker, an entrepreneur, you know, developing this multimedia empire, 94 Productions, is because I'm crazy enough to believe it could happen.
yeah,
I see the talent, I see the progress, and I see the feedback, right? Like people like yourself. I don't know you, you don't owe me anything, and you tell me I'm talented. So when I
yeah,
hear that, it's like, hey, there's a market. I just have to find it, I have to position it, I have to capitalize on it. So um if I was a person that was kind of like fooling myself, I was meant for the office, I was doing well, I was making good money, but there was always that passion to be a filmmaker. Not to say like, why can't I pursue that? But that's when you start to say, hey, maybe you should consider it more as a hobby than a career and not
Right.
risk your whole life for it, right? Because there are
Yeah.
certain talents that we have and certain talents that we don't, So like I'm not that much of an athletic individual. So I would never in my life tell people, yeah, I'm going to make it to the NHL. I enjoy
Yeah.
hockey. I was fairly good at the sport, but I'm never going to tell people, this is all I want to do. Filmmaking was a calling for me, and like yourself, I'm so happy that we pursued this passion, to follow our heart, because no
Can
one's
I
going to do it for us. Yeah.
can I ask you if there
Yeah.
was
Tell me. Yeah.
a director or something like that that really inspired you to get into film?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm happy you asked this question because I'm always happy to answer it. My hero, Quentin Tarantino. That's
Quentin, let's go.
yeah,
I had a suspicion you were a Quentin dude.
Yeah, and why is
Yeah.
that? Wait, I think we talked about. I don't know. I can't remember, but yeah, like
Yeah.
what gave it away?
I just think like your vibe, I feel like you would really appreciate the type of dialogue that he has in his
Yes.
films, right? Because I think that's a defining quality of his films, the dialogue, like
Right.
how he can make such menial conversations just in a coffee shop so fucking interesting. Like, the scene just starts off two people talking in a coffee shop, but the way he has the dialogue down, it's instantly captivating. Like, what is what's in the case? What are they doing? Why are they here? Um, so yeah, sorry.
No, I 100% agree with everything you're saying, and I'm so happy that that was one of the attributes as to why Tarantino is considered an idol. His dialogue, yes, I take very much pride in that. That's why I take so much time in eloquently writing these questions, having this podcast, conveying myself in an articulate manner. I just find it to be highly attractive in your way of communicating, and his characters do it beautifully. So when you hear my dialogue in my short films or in eventually my feature films, you'll kind of see that I emulate that same concept.
Right.
And Tarantino, yeah, the reason why I love him is, I'll give you again another breakdown. Audience is probably loving this because they hear it all the time. Tarantino represents to me, the rebel, the outsider, the guy that did it without anybody helping him. You know what I mean? Like, obviously he had help along the way, like, because people believed in his vision and supported him, but there was no such thing as a handout. There was no such thing as, his uncle or daddy was in the film industry. This guy was rogue. This guy was like started from the bottom, knew no one. And for someone like myself, I highly identify with that because no one in my family is from film. No one I grew up with is in the film industry. All the connections I've made were purely out of my own volition, and my own merit. So it's like I highly identify with him. And not only that, I identify with him and I aspire to be like him because his films, and his name, I should say, have become a brand. When you hear his name, you immediately like have a flash of like his
Yeah,
movies,
the
his
style.
right?
Yeah.
When I mention other filmmakers to you, like Peyton Reed, you'd be like, what? Like they're just for hire directors kind of thing, right? Not no shame on them, but that's what I really do aspire to. That's what I kind of revere, is an individual that is in his own, in his craft, in his element, able to conjure up this story from a mere imagination. So everything I've done to this point is based in those principles. You know what I mean? So like Tarantino, that's why he's my guy, and I hope to meet him one day. Tarantino also inspired me so much so that 94 Productions, I don't know if you know this, it's the year I was born, 1994, but it's the same year Pulp Fiction came out and made him who he is today. Yeah,
Oh,
1994. Yeah. So Pulp Fiction was released, for those that don't know, around the time of my birthday, September 24, 1994. And
wow.
what's funny is I had a guest on the podcast say, gave me goosebumps, like, so how would you feel, or what would you describe the experience if someone said, in 30 years, like they were born in like 2020 when you started 94 Productions,
94
you know what I mean? And
production.
it's
Yeah,
like,
that's crazy.
they named it after that, or like they were inspired to be a filmmaker because of you. I said, man, it would be honestly surreal. But for me to think that far ahead before I can do that, I'd like to share my story with Tarantino, only because it's authentic and genuine. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's not for anything. I'm not trying to, like, I genuinely like adore the man. And he represents, again, someone that didn't have to go to film school, didn't have to be born into wealth. And it's
Yeah.
that typical story, rags to riches, but it's like, this guy's on another level, man. He's the badass. He's the guy that doesn't play
Yeah.
by the rules. You know what I mean? He
Yeah.
comes out with a
And
movie,
makes
everybody
it.
loves
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know that like there's something about these kind of rebel, or outcast, misfit type characters that everybody is inspired by, right? Even,
Exactly.
you know, that's kind of I wanted to ask you that, because for me, ever since I started actually pursuing this, you kind of have to go against the grain a lot, right? Like,
Right.
even though all my friends are very supportive of what I've been doing, um, but starting out, it's just a lot of people are not pursuing the same thing, right? A lot of people are going the more structured route, and so um, eh, not every like I find people see what I'm doing and maybe don't always understand it. There's there's moments, I don't know how to describe it, but there's moments where I feel like maybe I should just calm down and fit in and go with the flow, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah, I know what that feeling. Yeah.
yeah, so now that I'm actually pursuing it, even though everybody does give you your flowers and respect when they actually see
Yeah.
kind of the work coming out,
The
and
hustle. Yeah.
it's looking good, and it connects. But starting out, no one really told me like, yeah, you should go for it. Everyone around me was still kind of like, yeah, that's very risky, maybe you should just calm down and go the stable route. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like, even though everybody is inspired by or admires the hero who goes and goes against the grain and is a bit of a rebel, those people who actually go through that process face a lot of difficulties, with
100%.
face a lot of difficulties, the pressure, the expectations to conform, and
Yep.
the people who make it, like Quentin, are the ones who are able to stay consistent and kind of stay true to their path for many, 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 many years until they become the hero. Because I'm sure Quentin was dismissed, his earlier works
100%.
were, yeah,
Yeah. All his script, like his first three scripts, True Romance, Natural Born Killers. I don't think Reservoir Dogs he got to that point because he got the message. They, rejected him. They told him like, we don't understand this material, and he said, it's okay, I'll make it myself.
yeah,
And that's what I always try to tell my friends, my peers, colleagues, my family, is that you're nobody until you're somebody, right? Like you have to understand is that until you make that first breakthrough, that first project, especially the position I'm in,
yeah,
I have to eat shit. I know I do, and I'm
exactly.
dealing with it right now, right before the podcast. You asked me how my day was. I told you I got to deal with this idiot, that idiot. The reality is, man, is that as we get older, as we become more established, as we become more established in this career, we understand that like you have more pull. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm sure they have their own problems, but like the amount of shit they went through before becoming who they were was
Yeah,
nothing compared to now. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like they went through a lot of garbage, but
yeah,
that's what it is, right? But I think it comes back to doing it for sincere intentions. You know what I mean? Tarantino, at the end of the day, just wanted to be a filmmaker, excuse me, and he just wanted to showcase his talents, his storytelling abilities, and captivate an audience. He didn't want to do it for the vanity and the attention
exactly,
and the
yeah,
glory. Now, those are perks. I call them perks because, hey, like nothing wrong with saying I want to be just as ambitious. I want to have the reap those rewards because I want to do better not only for myself, for my family, generational wealth, things like that. But at the same time, I'm still a kid. Since I was like 5 years old, I go back to that where I want to make movies. I want to tell my stories just as much as he does, because I truly love the medium,
hmm,
and I realize is that pursuing your path, pursuing your dreams, takes a toll, and it pays. It pays a lot,
yeah,
not only for yourself, but I'm saying it's highly demanding. You know what I mean? There's a cost to it, and some people aren't willing to pay that cost. I remember like working for an entrepreneur that said that. I can't remember his name, but when you chase your dreams, people think it's all like fulfilling and satisfying
oh,
consistently.
you're
Like
eating
you're like
shit, yeah,
euphoria. No, but like you're in euphoria, right? Like,
yeah,
oh my God, like you're working at Walmart. I'm chasing my dreams. Yeah. And you don't realize is that there's a cost. You lose people. I've lost
yeah,
people. I've lost relationships. I've had people look at me strangely, and it's put me in bad situations. But Does it affect, me pursuing this passion? No, because like you said, the way human nature works, when you get there, those same people most likely will come back around. It's very
Yeah.
strange because I've got a taste of it a little bit so far, and I'm not even where I need to be. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. We're talking at a very early level, in regards to this, but I think it's just, yeah, I don't think the people mean any harm from that. It's just that, um, it's like the probability, right? Because
Right.
we're talking about Quentin and stuff, right? But the reality is there's a lot of people who do pursue this path, and maybe not maybe they don't have something that Quentin has, like that true
Yeah, that
intention
1%, that
that keeps
spark.
them
Yeah.
going, right?
Yeah.
And I would say the majority of people don't have that. It's something very elusive to just keep going even though things are are not going well, right? And
Yeah.
keep overcoming the setbacks and hurdles. You have to really love something. You have to have a real, strong intention towards it to keep that up. So especially with the creative fields, so many people aren't able to carry that consistency and fail, right? And so I think it's understandable that a lot of other people, when they hear uh, kind of people going all in on something that's risky like that, they kind of assume the most likely outcome, right? Um, and there's no way around it. Like before you're the guy, and when you're working towards it, when you're a nobody, it's just a reality. You just have to
Yeah.
do that for multiple years, 10 years, and success doesn't, those overnight successes is a accumulation of like 10 years of work. And
Right.
then, after 10 years, it seems like you blow up overnight, but it's all that experience, that those failures that got you there, right? And so it's easy to see someone, who's like, I don't know, who's like busking on the streets, playing guitar, or doing small bar shows, and be like,
Yeah.
oh, uh, uh, that's
This guy's gonna make it one. I know what you mean. I think
it's very hard to say that, right? Yeah.
I'm guilty of it. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not the kind of guy where it's like, yeah, you should believe in everybody and everybody has a talent and whatever. Like, I
Yeah.
get it. Like, there are some people that just don't make it, and I'm very fearful of that myself. Right? It's like, as much as I have the hard work, the ethics, the discipline, the motivation to do it, and I inspire people like yourself. The reality is the market decides. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the 1%. That's why it's so elusive, fame and the pinnacle.
Success in
Like
general, right?
success, yeah,
Yeah.
success in general. But sorry, I meant like being the alpha. You know what I mean? Being like the top of the top. Tarantino knows that, and he even said it, I believe, in interviews where it's like
Yeah.
he's aware that things could go gone wrong a long time ago. You know what I mean? Things could just not connect. Harvey Weinstein, he credits to getting him to where he was. Like, that's what I mean by, like, think about that, right? Tarantino, he was very self-confident, and had the conviction to basically say, like, no one's going to tell me how to convey my vision.
Yeah.
And the reality is everyone knows this, like, unless he had the funding, you know what I mean, unless he had the resources, like, and the connections, he would only be that guy making like indie low budget films with his vision. You know what I mean? Like, he would only go so far. Eventually he would even pack it up, and he knows that.
Right.
Like he said, eventually I would probably just entertain. I don't want to entertain the thought, sorry. He goes, I just would be running a video store. And that was back then. Now we know what happened to video stores, right? So it's like, you have to have that self-awareness that it could go either or, right? Pendulum swings both ways. My conviction is, like, if you don't go for it, you never know. You know what I mean? It's like,
Exactly. Yeah.
now I've come this far. It's like, holy shit, this is the time to give up. I don't think so. It's like, let's go. Let's fucking go harder. Let's go at it. You know what I mean? And we're at that age, man. You're 27, I'm 28. People wrap it up. Believe it or
Feel
not.
the window. Yeah, I feel the window.
People
Totally.
wrap it up. And I know that feeling too, because I've been also having contemplations like, yo, like, is this really worth it? Like, I feel like I'm in one place all the time. And then I say to myself, you know what? It's a process. It's a marathon. The important thing is that you keep going at the craft day in and day out. Maybe it's not always the same energy, but what matters is you're staying consistent. And that's bigger than the person that says, I'll do it in 5 days, I'll do it in 5 months of 5 years, right? So it's like, that's what I kind of tell myself to keep myself motivated, fully aware that anything can happen, whether it's successful or failure, you know what I mean? But that's what I think excites me, man, about this craft. Would you agree? Like the no formula, I call it.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I think that the perspective you're talking about here is very process oriented, right?
Yes, you were telling me about this.
Rather
Yeah.
than results oriented. Process oriented is kind of just like, um, the enjoyment is in doing all the stuff, doing all the work, going through all the problems, overcoming the challenges. That's where the enjoyment and value is, rather than, you know, the result. Everybody thinks like the Lambos, the fame, the money, that's where the enjoyment is. But no, it's this. And I think what you said is very, very, very true, right? It's about doing things with the right intentions. And I'm just in a mind space where, I believe people who have true and clear intentions on what they're doing, are bound to find some type of success, right?
Right.
Because if you have that, it's just more likely you're going to be consistent and fight for the things you're doing, right? And I wanted to ask you,
Yeah, sure.
um, how many years have you been doing this? It's been a while, right?
Yeah, so yeah, people ask me all the time, and answer is not as definitive, but I can basically, yeah, give you a short answer. Essentially, I've been doing the last 5 years steady.
Oof.
I technically, yeah, I've been doing it though, in spirit, I should say, since I was like about 17, 18 years old.
Mm,
So that's when I was just writing screenplays. Nothing crazy. It's just these feature film projects I was telling you about. Like I wrote 4 of them in the past like 8 years, 10 years, and essentially they're passion projects, right? So I've been working on that, but in the last 5 years, that's when I started picking up a camera and saying like I want to be a director, right? And then in the last 3 years, I started 94 Productions, so like more of a established like formal venture. And yeah, man, it's been quite a journey, I have to say. I've been having a good run. I can't complain. Um, it's interesting though, because you know how you hear with small businesses and or business in general, right? It says it takes time to build something meaningful and whatever. And for some reason, I feel like I've been doing it my whole life, but in reality, I've only been doing it 3 to 5. You know what I mean?
yeah.
3 to 5 years. So it's like, what am I complaining about sometimes, right? Like sometimes I'm like, oh, like I didn't get that client, or like, I should have got paid more for this, and it's
Yeah.
like, buddy, like chill. Like there's been videographers or directors, I should say, that have been doing it for 20 years. You know what I mean?
So
I think I have a different like vision though. I always say, it's a little bit wishful where it's like, I wanted to be that hip young director. I think I was telling you about this, like the Drake of film.
the
Um,
Jacob,
you know what I mean? No, because it's like the way I look at it, it's like actors have this like, sex appeal to them. They make it look like attractive. You know what I mean? Like it's like a sexy quality to be an actor, let's say, right? And
yeah,
directing, there's no sex
it's
appeal
not
to it.
seen in the same way.
Yeah, do you know
Yeah,
what I mean, man? It's
they don't
like
get the rock star
they don't
treatment.
get the rock star
Yeah,
treatment. And then again, I love Tarantino because he's the one that came closest to that. Now,
yeah,
Tarantino, some would argue it's not like, imagine what I'm saying is if he was like a DiCaprio, right? But he had
yeah,
like his genius, So what I'm trying to get at is like I just always aspired to do that, to achieve that for Toronto. You know what I mean? Like be this like rock star
yeah.
director who represented Toronto in his personal life and professionally, right? With his stories. So still young, still possible. You know what I mean? Like I'm just gonna keep at it. But this is what I
No,
mean
no,
by no formula, man. Like anything can really just turn around. Like
yeah,
the content I put out, you never know if someone could just
yeah.
watch it
You
and be
just
like,
have to
yo,
keep going.
right? If
Hmm.
you could, like the thing I showed you about Nima, right? Like that short film, amazing like feedback, right? I did that back in
Yeah,
October. That was on a thousand
that
dollar
was a legit. I watched it. That was
Yeah, thank you.
legit. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It
that
was
was
on a
like some
thousand dollar
Netflix
budget.
shit.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. It was on $1,000 budget, and the reason
Yeah,
why I say the budget part is because imagine if I did have like a million, 5 million, $10 million budget, like an independent director, film director for a feature film. Like, how would my films look? You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I look to that. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I use it as a benchmark, a reference point. It's like if these guys like this, trust me. Imagine it when they see my features. You know what I mean? So I'm excited for
So
that, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's yeah, Daniel. The biggest thing, I admire about you is you still have this level of enthusiasm and drive 5 years down, down the path.
Right, right,
I'm sure you've gone through a lot of ups and downs,
100%.
over the 5 years, and kind of wanted to ask you if you had any tips, because I'm in my first year in this type of endeavor, and I'm very motivated, very much in like the honeymoon phase. Uh,
Yeah,
but I'm sure there's challenges ahead. There's
things to
setbacks
be
ahead.
weary of. Yeah.
Yeah. So any tips for kind of keeping that consistency throughout the trials and tribulations?
Yeah, 100%, man. I just would always remind yourself of like why you started, like why you're in the path. This is why I ask my guests all the time, like, why did you become an actress, or why did you become a film director? It's because I'm curious for myself. You know what I mean? Like, why are you chasing this thing? Is it because of the vanity? Is it because you took an art class and you're like, hey, I want to be an artist? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's some people that genuinely have those answers, which is fine. Just, is it that much of a drive? Is it going to push you when you're really like beat on your luck? Because been through it, and I think I've shared some stories to you where it's like, it's made me question, like, do I really want this? Like, it got that bad. It was affecting my mental health, my family life, and the reminder, the why I started, right? The legacy, you know what I mean? The recognition, the story, the idea that I could be paid for what I love to do, right? Like, all these things, that's my why. You know what I mean? It's like, I've
Mhm.
always wanted this since I was a kid, before, you know what I mean, all the trials and tribulations that life had to offer. So I always
Mhm.
go back to that, right? It's like, when you're a kid, life is simplistic. There's not much worry, there's no politics, you're not dealing with egos. And that's what I tell myself. It's like, I'm not doing this because it's like I'm looking for a quick buck, or like, oh, there's a lot of money to be had in this. I'm doing this because I want to make that little Daniel, that 5-year-old kid, understand that it is possible, right? And you saw that in my Nima video, right? It's like, those were my words that I wrote. It's like,
Yeah.
to remind yourself, like, the conviction within ourselves to do something that's greater than who we are, right? Bigger than who we are. I believe in those words. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, that's what pushes me every day. It's like, I could be something that no one saw coming, a kid from Vaughan, Toronto, whatever. And that knew no one in the business, and just
Yeah.
seeing their faces and like just like doing it and making it happen, right? But aside from all that, for me, it always comes back to the core of, I just love telling stories. I really do. As I get older, yes, it becomes more challenging. You realize that it's real life. You can't just write a script, submit it, make a movie. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of negotiations and
Yeah.
networking tactics. But at its core, it's really about, can you tell a badass, compelling story? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's what I go after, man. So I would recommend to anyone, including yourself, whether it's podcasting, whether it's a clothing brand, whether it's sales, you know what I mean? Always go back to, like, why is it
The
that I'm
why.
doing this? You know what I mean? The why.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is about money, and there's nothing wrong with that. You got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Remind yourself, hey,
Yeah.
like, if I want to live in the city of Toronto, one of the greatest cities in the world, I got to do this job so I can pay the bills. Or word it like this: I got to do this job so it can fuel my dreams. Right? That's the
Yeah.
bender I'm in. I'm telling you, right? It's like, I got a lot of expenses, whether it's licensing fees, equipment costs, running this business. I need clients. I need money. Some clients, it's like, oh, like, the work, is it something that I really want to do, or do I really
Yeah.
want to go off and do features? Yes, of course.
Yeah.
But it's like, I still need money to come through. You know what I mean? So that's the logic I kind of play on myself. It's like, I'm going to take the money. You know what I mean? I'm going to take the money, but I'm going to take the experience and the value it comes with it. Don't just like base it off of something as simplistic as it's just a money, right? It's always like, what else is it providing you with, right?
Yeah.
So back to, I just want to touch on this point. Sales, very interesting enough. Sales, I did it for 6 years, and I told you, I'm like, yeah, I'm done with sales. And I, truthfully, yes, I won't go back, because I just can't, especially like all that I've discovered with my skill sets. However, sales got me to this point, where I'm able to have a conversation. I'm able to articulate my thoughts. I'm able to convey a meaningful conversation. Why? Because sales is all about people. Sales is all about connecting with people and having a dialogue. And those 6 years shaped me, defined me to become and get to this point. So as much as I hated those years where it was like, oh my God, I didn't get the commission, or this guy was an asshole to me, or this client, whatever, I owe and credit a lot of those experiences to the person I am today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I have no regrets with that. It's like, that shaped me, that defined me, that built me a thick skin.
Yeah.
You know, it taught me rejection. It taught me like you're not always going to get the yes, but when you do, you capitalize on it. You go double down, right? Because then you want the commission. So I just owe a lot to my experiences like that. So always find the why, always find the reason, and always identify what your purpose is.
Yeah, that's very well said. That's so true, right? Like when the challenges come and they're overwhelming,
Yeah,
it all comes down to the why you're doing this, right? Like that's the core behind why a boxer gets up in the 12th round, getting the shit beaten out of him, why he still gets up, right?
yeah,
And I don't think there's a right answer for having the right why question. I don't think there's a right or wrong. It just has to be something that's strong enough for you to keep on going, right?
yeah,
And for me, in my last path of trying to pursue law school, my why was not strong enough. Like when shit hit the fan, when the rubber met the road, like I tried to look deep, dig deep for that that inspiration to keep going forward, and my why was not strong enough. Like
right,
maybe at one point it was, but um, when I needed it to overcome the challenges that were ahead of me, it wasn't enough. And that's what made me question and kind of reflect on what is uh, the path for me then, right? So now I think I found it, but I think that's that those are very wise words.
Thank you, man.
Especially in this day and age where social media is so powerful, right? It's so easily influencing. It's so easily to be influenced by something that's nice and shiny, right? Like you see
Right,
these lifestyles of these YouTubers in hype
yeah.
houses. It looks amazing, right? You're
19
driving
years old. It's like, what are you
19
doing
year
with your
old
life? Yeah.
driving a Lambo,
TikTok influence. Yeah.
and then everybody starts wanting to do it, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think if I could you know speak to some of these people going into these endeavors, just ask yourself if you're doing it for the right reasons, because I think that's so important, right? Because if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, not only might it be more difficult to carry on through challenges,
Right.
uh, but even if you're successful, if you've done it for the wrong reasons and you get the success, um, you know, life is not that great if you've done it all just for the money and the fame, because you hear a lot of stories when people reach there, they have all types of problems with their mental health, with their families, their relationships, because it came from a place of greed, a place of vanity, a place of whatever, and no amount of money is gonna fixes those problems, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. No, for sure, man.
so
You
yeah,
can't have money be a driving factor. Like as much as I tell you, right? I think last time we spoke, I said, like I want to obviously achieve great success and wealth because I need to develop my own path, right? Like find my own life. And as much as I say that, there's a part of me where it's like I also need to do it for the reasons that I are true to me, right? Or else I would have ended up in a sales job, let's say, and or you would have ended up in a law a law profession. There's a reason why we steer away from these paths, right? Like, are they ultimately fulfilling? At
yeah,
the end of the day, man, it's like the way I look at life. You got to do things that um, you got to give it a shot. You know what I mean? You got to do things that you just got to do things where it's like there's no regret. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like this part of the reason why I chase this dream so relentlessly is I don't want to be 40 years old where I have someone
yeah,
like you tap me on the shoulder and like, yo, you should have made films, man. Oh, well, you
yeah,
should have done it. It's like, no, I
yeah.
did that. I tried it. You know what I mean?
I
Like I
tried
went
it.
for it.
Win, lose or draw, right?
Win, lose or try. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah, like I don't believe in like giving up. I don't think I'll ever will. Like there'll always be that fire in me. But at the same time, it's like even if I do wind down, um, I know it's like I went for it. Like my 20s has been so tumultuous.
yeah,
And part of the reason is because I've been chasing something that's so audacious, unconventional, right? A lot of people, a lot of friends I grew up with, married now, they're out of their house, they're living on their own, but they've also been working at the same company for 10 years, right? So it's like it's like
yeah,
you have to weigh your options, right? I've obviously have more life experiences, and I personally believe that, and
yeah,
developed greater friendships. So that's what I pride myself on. So I think it really
Yeah.
comes back to what I'm saying is just your priorities,
Your
like what do
priorities,
you
yeah.
value? What do you value the most in life?
Yeah. It's,
Because it's not going to be the same as someone else. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think there, yeah, I think everybody has their own situation, right? And when I think about it, like my parents, for example, they didn't have the luxury to even think about pursuing a path of passion, right? They needed money to survive, to raise their
100%.
family and stuff, and that's just as noble as any other path, right? But for them, that a stable and secure financial future was their calling, was their purpose, right? And that's very noble, right? But you just have to be self-reflective enough to know which one is most suitable for your temperament, your personality, your kind of situation, right?
Right.
Because yeah, um, I wouldn't say everybody can be a lawyer, or I wouldn't say everybody could be a podcaster. It's just who it depends on who you are, right? Um, and
Yeah,
and
man.
yeah, I think when I first started, I was a little, narrow-minded of this, like, passion is, and doing something you're passionate is the only right way, because I just discovered it, and I was so excited. But
Exactly.
1 year removed, I kind of have a more balanced and measured perspective on it, and it just depends on the cards you were dealt. Because if I was a new immigrant coming from a difficult region of the world coming in here, I probably wouldn't be doing this. I'd probably be doing something that would
No, and that's the
secure
thing, right? It's all about
secure the bag,
perspective.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, and that's all about perspective, right? And the reason why, again, you see me so adamant on chasing this passion is I'm fully aware of all the obstacles my grandparents and my parents have gone through to get to this point. So why wouldn't I chase my dream?
mm,
You know what I mean? Like everything is set up for me in a way to have
yeah,
that pathway to pursue it. My parents tell me all the time, "You're lucky you're at home still. You're
yeah,
lucky, bills are paid, or like you're not in debt, or you live in Vaughan, like a Toronto um area, right? Like a city like this in Canada, that is, right? There's a lot of people we grew up with, right? Or I do at least, where they come from the same cities. They've had big dreams, big aspirations, but they never bothered to chase them. Why? And for me, that's like no excuse. It's like you have every right to give
right,
it a try. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But you don't, because it's too unstable, right? It's too much of a risk. And that to me is unfortunate, because it's like, don't talk to me then. Yeah, I should become a musician. It's like, well, you didn't try.
yeah,
You
yeah,
were living in the same area as me, even better. Like I saw that house.
yeah,
You were living much more comfortably than my family. It's like you should. So for me, it's like that's where you kind of say to yourself, like you got to pick and choose, and you got to
yeah.
understand like this is the
Don't
best time
waste
to do
your
it.
yeah, don't waste your opportunity.
Absolutely, bro. Well, Kevin, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Killed it. I wasn't surprised at the very least, at all, I should say. You are a podcaster yourself. We had discussions. I might even appear on your podcast, Kill Your Pride. I'm
Yeah,
excited
it's
about
gonna
that.
happen.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your journey on being a creative, and just thinking outside the box and pursuing an unconventional path, doing something that's only a self-starter can understand, and for asking me those thoughtful questions to allow me
Thank
to
you.
share my insight to the audience.
And thank you so much, Daniel. Having only started this journey so recently, and being able to already, be so well received, and getting shown so much love from people like yourself, and Tyler, that I've been seeing in this field,
In
and
this space, yeah.
I'm very looking forward to seeing your future work, where
Thank you.
you'll go. Um, yeah, big things in the future, I think, and I just hope that we can continue to be um, in each other's journeys.
100%. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Kevin. That was a beautiful testament. Thank you, everybody else, for listening, and we'll talk soon.